Welcome to the Scarlet Faithful podcast. I'm Aaron Brightman. This is my rapid reaction to Rutgers losing to Maryland 42-24 on Saturday, November 25th, a couple days after Thanksgiving, and very disappointing performance for Rutgers. End of the regular season, senior day. It was a terrible start, pretty much as bad as you could script it, falling behind 28-3, 14-0 before you could blink, 28-3 in that first half. Credit to Rutgers for coming back. They did make it a game. They scored 2 touchdowns, forced 2 turnovers in the second quarter, got it to 28-17 at the half, had the ball, unable to do anything in that first possession of the first half. Maryland goes down and scores, and that was pretty much all she wrote. They did get it to 35-24, but ultimately fell 42-24. I think that takeaways that I could think of right away, first of all, the defense, really disappointing performance, gave up 498 yards to Maryland. You knew going in that Maryland, Tyler Voella, and I know I butchered that, I'm sorry, he's a very good passer, and he broke the Big Ten record for most passing yards in a career. Tiger Voella. I think I said that better. Anyway, you knew what Maryland does, right? And I think we saw that Rutgers' stats as a passing defense were helped by the fact that they haven't played a lot of good passing offenses. And Maryland carved them up. And I think part of that was schematic. I think, Maryland does some things that are a little bit different. I think that the defense was banged up. I think that's fair. But they were all at a position. I think, it's one thing to know what your opponent's going to do at being a different kind of scheme, but it's another to actually be able to play well against it. And they were out of position a lot. They were, steps slow. They were very much out of sorts. We're giving up big play after big play, and finally settled down in that mid-second quarter. Did force some mistakes. And when the defense, needed to they contained the pass, then Maryland was able to run. They only had 40 yards rushing in the first half, but in the second half, they had 97. So that was disappointing because Maryland is not a good running team. And when Rutgers defense had a chance to hold the line, they couldn't. So that was certainly, I don't know if it was surprising. I think the bigger takeaway from all this is that Rutgers has been non-competitive against Maryland in the last 3 seasons. This was the most competitive they've been in 3 seasons, and that's not a good thing. You still lost by 18 points. You were down by 25. 2 years ago, they lost, it was at 40-16. Rutgers lost to Maryland. And last year, I think it was 35-3. I'm trying to look it up because I did not check it first. But they lost 40-16 2 years ago. And last year, I think it was 35-3. So they have a Maryland problem. And that is 37-0 last year. So we're talking about 24, 37, 18. That is 79 points in 3 seasons. That's really bad. That is an average of 26.3 points margin of defeat against a program that, you're not, in theory, yes, you are behind them, clearly. But, this was a game between 6 and 5 teams that were both 3 and 5 in the Big Ten. This was a chance for Rutgers to leap them, and they couldn't do it, and it really wasn't that close. Gavin Wimsatt absolutely deserves, his fair share of criticism for this game. 38% completion percentage on 34 passes is really bad. Not going to cut it. Definitely was a key contributor in Rutgers falling so far behind. Missed some, wide open guys early on, and, had some big passes at points. Showed resiliency once again. That was a beautiful pass and great catch by Isaiah Washington, who, by the way, I was really happy to see, make that catch. He had a solid season for a guy that, really was inconsistent throughout his career. He had 3 catches for 67 yards today. Obviously, that 42-yarder was big, but in his last game at SHI Stadium, it was good to see him have a good game. Shout out to Kyle Monungai, first 1,000-yard rusher in 11 years, 8th ever for Rutgers. Had another 100-yard game, which is great to see him really cap it off. He's going to win the rushing title for the Big Ten. That is a big deal. He's a total gamer. Rutgers would not be going to a bowl if not for Kyle Monungai. He also had 31 yards receiving. So he had 149 yards, all-purpose yards. He was questionable on the availability report. He played like a true stud. And Wimsatt, listen, he had, what do you have rushing? 48 yards and 2 touchdowns. He has his pluses. I know people get mad at me when I say positive things about him. But yeah, you can't go 13 of 34, 165 yards, a touchdown, an interception, 38% completion percentage. That's just not close to cutting it, and certainly holding back the offense. Now, overall, a lot of mistakes everywhere. 8 penalties for 80 yards was awful. I think that's a season high. This team just showed that they weren't good enough to compete with Maryland, and the line between middle of the pack was made pretty clear tonight. Where Rutgers is, they're not a top half Big Ten team. I mean, I think they're 8 or 9, maybe 7. If you want to give them that top half designation. I mean, the Big Ten overall, it's pretty soft in the middle. That being said, listen, Rutgers is 6-6. They're going to a bowl game. Losing the last 4 games of the regular season is hugely disappointing. After that 6-2 start, we all hoped and thought they'd win at least one more game, and they didn't. They had moments here and there. They gave Ohio State hell, and I honestly think that there was collateral damage to that. I think that they physically got beat up from that game, and it kind of just grinded out from there. Iowa, they got physically beat up. Penn State, and they certainly, they had guys out today. They had a lot of guys on the availability report. My heart goes out to Johnny Langan, who's now out. Missed his last home game tonight. Is going to miss the bowl game. That guy's a true warrior. It's serious when he's not there. Jake Eldridge, the long snapper, wasn't there. I think that contributed some things. Shout out to Jay Patel for connecting on that 50-yarder. That was obviously a big moment for him, and he's had a really good season. And he's 14-16 in the regular season. So there's a mix of good and bad, right? And everyone's frustrated. I get it. But tomorrow, Sunday, when they call the bowl games and they assign, who you're playing, where you're playing, Rutgers' name is going to get called. And that was the ultimate goal for the season. Now, did Rutgers miss a lot of opportunities in November to take further steps? Yes, they did. I think depth is an issue. I think that the starting lineup for the defense is really good. And I think that, there was some depth there, right? I think Eric Rogers has shown some flashes filling in. I think the defensive line did not develop the way we had all hoped in terms of the depth and the rotation. And I think the front 4 got worn down as the year went on. Linebackers just got beat up. I mean, Powell has been out for a few games. Jennings was beat up today. Jabome had a couple of good plays today, but, he's still pretty green. I think Mo Toure is an absolute warrior, but he's, not playing in his preferred spot in terms of that hybrid role. So I think the wear and tear of the defense showed tonight. I think the scheme showed. I think they're, saying they're good against the pass and actually taking out a good passing team. We saw the difference tonight. Offensively, Rutgers was able to run the ball, but Wimsatt really held them back in the pass game, and penalties killed them. So they're just not good enough. They actually converted all right on third down. They're 8 of 17 as a team, which, is you'll take that. Not, great, but not terrible. 8 of 18. Maryland was 4 of 10. Obviously, Maryland had a lot of big plays. First downs, though, Maryland 24, Rutgers 20. But the yards per play is low, 4.5. And time of possession was good, 34 minutes, but just not enough action there. Rutgers did have 7 tackles for loss, which was good. But and they were able to slow Tagovailoa down. He had 298 yards at the half and only finished with 360. I think that was 361. So disappointing performance overall. They finished where we all hope we would. I think I've said this before, but people need to remember, if you were at the beginning of the season said, if they finish 6-6, I'll be happy. You have to be happy, right? It's a lot different than sitting through 6-6. And I get 6-2, and then you lose the last four. The competition was certainly harder. The schedule was more difficult. Going into November, it was the number one ranked schedule remaining of any FBS team. So with all that being said, living through it is different than what you say going into the season. 6-6, we'll take it. Well, that's what they delivered. The schedule, the way it, ran. I mean, listen, Northwestern's a bowl team. I didn't even look at scores today. I don't know if Virginia Tech won or not. I'll try to find it here. But I think that they did. They won 55-17. So that's two bowl games, two bowl teams they beat. Now, the pessimist is going to say, well, Rutgers beat Northwestern, Virginia Tech the first 2 weeks of the season. They would lose to them now. Maybe so. Maybe not. It's easy to say that now. You can't discredit those wins now, right? Those are two quality wins. And we'll see what happens. I mean, it seems like Rutgers is going to go to the Pinstripe Bowl. I guess there's a chance they go to the Vegas Bowl. If they go to the Pinstripe Bowl, it's ACC. It's probably Boston College. I guess Georgia Tech is possible as well. We'll see what happens. But that's a chance for a win in a bowl game. They're going to have a month off. They're going to have more development time. They're going to have a chance to get healthier. I'm very optimistic. I'm going into this game. I was more optimistic about the bowl game, no matter who they were playing, than this game, because I just think that they're beat up, they're worn down. Maryland's a bad matchup. I think they've proven that, and it's disappointing that they've lost as widely as they have over the last 3 seasons, and that is certainly a stain on Shiano's resume in terms of coming back. That Maryland, he's not closed the gap with Maryland. They beat him in 20. There were a lot of injuries. It was a COVID year. It was a weird year. Quality win, but they have not been competitive the last 3 seasons. And although they have, closed the gap per se in terms of being more competitive with Ohio State, Penn State, they challenged them at times. Michigan, they've been very competitive against them. Maryland is a team that has whooped them. And today, unfortunately, happened again. So understand the disappointment, understand the frustration. I don't understand the anger because Rutgers is 6-6 and going to a bowl. Whether you could say, oh, they don't deserve, whatever you want to say, they accomplished their ultimate goal. We wish they accomplished more. Now go to a bowl, win the game, win the bowl game, have a winning season. That's all you can look at right now. We'll find out on Sunday where they're going, who they're playing. Like I said, it looks like the Pinstripe against probably Boston College, Georgia Tech. Maybe Syracuse as well. Did Syracuse win today? I'm asking, obviously, a rhetorical question. Syracuse won today. They beat Wake Forest, so they're both eligible. Nunzio Campanile, that would be quite the storyline. That's right. I mean, if you're the Pinstripe Bowl, Syracuse versus Rutgers, Nunzio, that would be the storyline. Sorry, I didn't say that earlier, but that would probably be it. But even it's Boston College, that's a good storyline too, with Hafley and Big East, former Big East. So either way, it's going to be a compelling bowl game. And, if you're upset that they're going to the Pinstripe Bowl game, I don't know what to tell you. They're still going to a bowl game. And yes, Wimsatt's got to develop. Rutgers has to seriously evaluate the quarterback position in the offseason. They need to add more talent and depth to this roster. There's no doubt about that. No doubt. Rutgers needs to get better from where they are right now for next season. But we said that last season, and they did. Now they got to take another step. So back off the ledge, have some context, be frustrated, but also appreciate where this team is headed. Thank you for listening and watching the Scarlet Faithful podcast once again.